Hello and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video of myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is a US politics extra where I've been going through this interview that Kristen Welker has given to Donald Trump, and I've been fact-checking it and calling out some of the claims, or all of the claims. Literally everything Trump has said has been utterly ridiculous, factually incorrect, or distortion, or just outright lies and all. Now, I'm going to go through the second half of this because I'm a glutton for punishment. You may not want to put yourself through the same ordeal as previously, but I think it's useful. It's cathartic for me to get this out because I find it incredible that somebody is able to garner so much support in America while being able to lie so freely. But I also think it's deeply frustrating that interviewers like Kristen Welker here and others do not call out Trump for his incessant lies and just allow him to lie back, as we saw in the last episode when she called him out on the 13,099 criminals, illegal immigrant criminals that have been walking around as a result of the last 3 years of the Biden administration. She said, actually, that statistic is for the last 40 years, including, different administrations going over that time period, Republican and Democrat. And he said, no, that's just a fiction. That's not true. It is the last 3 years. And then she didn't push back on that. She's like, all right, no, it is 40 years. You are wrong and you are lying. So it's that kind of interaction that really frustrates me. Anyway, we're going to continue the interview for what it's worth.
You named Kash Patel to be the next FBI director. Yeah. He has a list in his book of 60 people that he calls members of the so-called deep state. It includes Democrats like Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. It includes former members of your cabinet, from Bill Barr to Christopher Wray. You campaigned on destroying the deep state. Do you want Kash Patel to launch investigations into people on that list?
No, I mean, he's going to do what he thinks is right.
Do you think that's right? Do you think that's right, sir?
If they think that somebody was dishonest or crooked or a corrupt politician, I think he probably has an obligation to do it. But
are you going to do?
This is a little bit problematic. Who knew? Because the entire reason he is employing or nominating Kash Patel for that position to be in charge of the FBI is precisely because he has that list and precisely because he has promised retribution for all of Trump's enemies. So his answer is, in my mind, completely disingenuous. I mean, that's why he's there. Now, for him to say, no, he's just going to... Look, if someone is corrupt and if someone has broken the law, then he's got an obligation to chase after them. Yeah, true. But that doesn't appear to be what's on his mind, and that's not why you have nominated him for that position. You are a very retributive person, Trump. We've seen this over time. And this fits entirely in with what we understand you to be.
Direct him to do it?
No, not at all. Not at all. We have two great people there. We have him and we have Pam. And Pam Bondi has been like a rocket ship. She's very popular and very good and very fair. And Kash Patel is very fair. I'll tell you.
So Pam Bondi is the Attorney General nominee who has replaced Matt Gaetz because Matt Gaetz was so deeply problematic. And Pam Bondi is an election denying, fits in line again with Trump's outlook. She's one of these people that maybe in a different time would have been called out by the press and by Democrats, but they've been so busy calling out all the other insane nominees that she's almost got a free pass there.
I thought Kash may be difficult because he's, a strong conservative voice.
It's divisive.
And I don't know of anybody that's not singing his praises. The other day I was watching, and Trey Gowdy, who's a moderate person and very smart and very respected in the party, he's Kash's biggest fan. He said, this is the most misunderstood man in politics. He's great. I guess they worked together on the Russia hoax or something. And Trey Gowdy became a fan. Trey Gowdy. Everybody respects him. And, just like him, others also. I don't know if...
he's obviously in his own information bubble because people have been pulling their hair out about Kash Patel. He's just an insane choice.
One negative vote? I don't think he's going to have any negative votes.
Is it your expectation, though, that Kash Patel will pursue investigations against your political enemies?
No, I don't think so.
Do you want to see that happen?
If they were crooked, if they did something wrong, if they have broken the law, probably. They went after me, you know. They went after me and I did nothing wrong.
Well, let me ask you this.
Again, here, you got to read between the lines. He says, no, they're not going to go after my enemies, but if they've done something wrong, then he will go after them. He's got an obligation to. But of course, his belief is they've all done something wrong. So it's like, no, but yes. Yes, the answer is yes. He may have said no, but then he qualified it with unless they've done something wrong, which I believe they've done something wrong, all of them.
You said President Biden, quote, that you're going to appoint a real special prosecutor to go after Joe Biden. You said that
Where
during
did I say that?
the campaign.
Where?
You said that on Truth Social, June 12th, 2023. I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of the United States, Joe Biden, and the entire Biden crime family. Are you going to do that? Are you going to go after Joe Biden?
I'm really looking to make our country successful. I'm not looking to go back into the past. I'm looking to make our country successful. Retribution will be through success. If we can make this country successful, that would be my greatest, that would be such a great achievement. Bring it back.
That's a really good answer, right? So give Trump his due there. He's not answering the question. Because the answer, technically, by saying that is no, I'm not going to go after him. And I was not telling the truth before. Or at least I was really free, fast and loose with what I was claiming would happen. It's basically saying, I am going to go after Joe Biden. He then gets voted in as like, no, I'm not going to go after Joe Biden. Okay, how do you marry those two things? Why? What's changed? What's happened? Is it because actually those are just bombastic claims, but then is that irresponsible? We get onto the same conversation about, well, you can't just go around making these wild claims. People then vote you in on the back of those wild claims because they like those wild claims, and then you go, actually, that was obviously just a bit crazy. I'm never going to go and do that, really. That is irresponsible. That kind of messaging is irresponsible. Or you know, I don't really see there's any way around understanding that other than that. Or he is going to go after them, and he is going to go after Joe Biden. And actually, he's lying to Kristen Welker here. But the answer he gives is a really good one, that's what it should be. So unfortunately, he said all this crazy stuff about retributively chasing people. What he should do is say no. Like, the best retribution I can get on all my naysayers is by having a fantastically successful presidency. That is actually a genuinely good answer, but it is a little bit of a sidestep considering he's said all that stuff before and he's employed someone who is going to do all of that, and there is no evidence that he won't go and try and do that. So there are lies going on here somewhere, either before or now.
We have a country now that's overridden with crime, that has millions of people that shouldn't be here, that should be in prisons in other countries, that should...
The crime is lower now. The crime rates have gone significantly down. So this is a pretty problematic claim of his.
Be in mental institutions. We have drug lords being dropped into our country and told never go back to their country. I'm looking to make our country great.
What are you talking about? You can't just say stuff like that and just drop that in. Drug lords being dropped into our country and told never to go back. What does that mean? Who's doing that? Are there state actors dropping in drug lords into America by helicopter? Are they parachuting in and saying you're not allowed back, but go for it, go and make a mess of America? Is that happening? If that's happening, we need to know more about that because that's insane. And if it's not happening, you're lying and you're saying insane things. This is a totally unacceptable thing. But the problem is, we're so used to him saying this that it becomes noise. But it shouldn't do. This is irresponsible rhetoric.
To bring prices down because, I won on two things, the border and more than immigration. They like to say immigration. I break it down more to the border, but I won on the border and I won on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost...
We're going to come to this in a second because this is actually one of the most insane parts of the entire interview. But I just want to bring you, there's so many different articles you can look at here. You can look at the official stats directly, go to Statista or the FBI crime stats. US violent crime is down. Many voters refuse to believe it. That second sentence is the key there. That it's just like what you've seen from a lot of GOP dignitaries and indeed voters is that, oh, I don't believe that. You can't just pick and choose what you believe in that kind of way. Facts aren't sort of, they're not flavors. Oh, I don't like that. I'm not going to have that one. I don't really like that flavor of sweet, actually. So I'm not going to eat that. I don't really like that fact. It's just it doesn't sit with me. It doesn't accord with my core belief. It's this cognitive dissonance, core belief, evidence against that belief. Oh, I don't really like that evidence. Or I'm just going to forget that evidence. Oh, I've still got my core belief. Core belief is violent crime is high and everything about Biden is bad. Biden cannot have achieved anything good because so Trump would have you, so Trump's mind works. It's a zero-sum game. So if Biden does well, that is Trump doing badly. You just can't accept another human being, particularly another politician, another opposition, another leader from the opposition party doing well. He cannot have him doing well because it's Trump doing badly. So I've got this core belief that crime, it must be terrible now because Biden's in charge. So evidence against that, I just don't believe it. And then they try and fudge the FBI stats by saying, they changed the way, the way they do data doesn't include this and that. And actually people then coming out and saying, no, they've changed the way they do the data. It does take into account all these big cities and blah, blah, blah. But the simple fact of the matter is that crime has dropped and Trump still doesn't believe that. But we are going to go now to this new topic of groceries. And my goodness, like this should be the stimulus for many a comedy sketch routine on Saturday Night Live, on Seth Meyers, on whatever. This is just insanity.
Immigration, they like to say immigration. I break it down more to the border, but I want on the border and I want on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word.
Who uses the word? It's like groceries. Who uses? It's like he's supposed to be the man of the people. Like he's supposed to be looking after the working class in America. He's like, groceries. Who's ever heard of groceries? What a crazy word, groceries. I've never. It's like what people buy at the shops. Groceries. Crazy word. Anyway, you might have not have heard of it. I'll let you know. Groceries. It's like eggs and flour and potatoes and stuff and lollipop sticks and fluff and badgers. It's all of these things. It's amazing. You go to the shop and you buy these things and then you pay cash and they say, no, you can use your phone now. And no way, you can't use your phone. Oh my God, it's just mad. What are you talking about, you mentalist?
Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word, the groceries. When you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time.
Who voted for this plum donut? Like, honestly. Like, who can sit there and go, he's my man. He's my man. He's explaining to me what groceries are. I honestly didn't know what groceries were before. I didn't even know it included bacon. It includes bacon. Did you know groceries include bacon? No way, bacon? I thought it was only eggs. But now I know it's bacon as well. Man, that's going to blow. Oh, you wait till I tell my mates. Ooh, crazy.
Eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
I want to pause here because what you're saying is significant. Because you wrote on Truth Social in 2023 that you're going to appoint a real special prosecutor to go after Joe Biden. Now you're saying you're not going to do that.
I will say this. No, I'm not doing that unless I find something that I think is reasonable. But that's not going to be my decision. That's going to be Pam Bondi's decision and, to a different extent, Kash Patel. Assuming they're both there, and I think they're both going to get approved. But
It's interesting. She's like gone back saying, no, we just need to make sure that we're clear on this. And he's done a very, you could say, clever little thing here, which is the slopey shoulders approach. So he can't get the blame. Look, I'm not going to go after them. Like, I'd be the president. So, no, I'm not going to go after them. Pam Bondi and Kash Patel may choose to do that. That's their job, right? It's up to them. I lead them to do what they're going to do. You go and do that. That's your job. But yeah, I'm just going to be sitting in the Oval Office drinking Diet Coke. So,
while you ask me that, what they've done to me with weaponization is a disgrace.
We'll get to some of that.
No, wait.
Here's the retribution coming in. So it's like, I'm not going to do that, but I tell you what, they freaking deserve it. Here's the truth. And this is your thin-skinned Trump. But, well, no, there have been people going after him. But why? Because he's broken the law. He's serially broken the law. It's not that this is lawfare, as he would claim and as many Republicans claim. This is law. This is man breaks law. Man has whole boxes of classified documents in his toilet. What are you going to do? You're going to prosecute him, because that ain't right.
To me, with weaponization.
And actually, it's not that just that he had them, but he was obstructing justice looking into that. That's the problem as well.
Assuming they're both there, and I think they're both going to get approved. But while you ask me that, what they've done to me with weaponization is a disgrace.
We'll get to some of that.
No,
sir.
wait. You can't do one without the other. In the history of our country, nothing like this has ever happened. And I've won these cases. I've won every one, and the rest are in the process of being won. Deranged Jack Smith is on his way back to...
He hasn't won his cases. The cases weren't even allowed to finish going to trial because Merrick Garland was too cautious. And my goodness, if I met Merrick Garland in a dark alley, I'd give him what for. But he hasn't won all his... What's he talking about?
To The Hague, where he can execute people. This is where he should have stayed. I think he's dangerous even being there. But I'll tell you what they've done to me in terms of weaponization, indictments, impeachments, and everything else. And in the end, it probably helped me because I got the biggest vote, the most votes any Republican's ever gotten in history.
Pam Bondi talks about investigating the investigators. Do you want her to investigate Jack Smith?
I want her to do what she wants to do.
Do you want to see Jack Smith investigated?
Well, I think he's very corrupt, but I want her to do whatever she has to do.
Are you going to direct her to prosecute Jack Smith?
She's a very smart person. She was a great attorney general in Florida. She's very experienced. I want her to do what she wants to do. I'm not going to instruct her to do it, no.
Sir, are you going to fire the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, who you appointed?
Well, I can't say I'm thrilled with him. He invaded my home. I'm suing the country over it. He invaded Mar-a-Lago. I'm very unhappy with the things he's done. And crime is at an all-time high.
That's not true. Crime is not at an all-time high. So that's a lie. Christopher Wray should normally, I mean, he got rid of James Comey in his previous tenure to replace him with Christopher Wray. So Christopher Wray is his own choice, and they should rule for 10 years. Or not rule, that's kind of monarchical. Their term is 10 years, and he already broke the norm in replacing James Comey previously. Now he's going to replace Christopher Wray before his term is over in another case of norm breaking.
Migrants are pouring into the country that are from prisons and from mental institutions.
No, migrants are actually at a much lower rate now than they were, arguably because of the executive orders that Biden put in place. But also, what's this idea that they're coming from mental institutions? So some people, there have been articles written on this, in that Trump confuses asylum seekers with mental asylum. So if we put in Trump mental asylum and seekers confusion, you'll notice that there are asylum, Trump's latest flood fuels cognitive decline, Trump's asylum rhetoric. No, that's slightly can't find proof. Demonization of asylum seekers. I've seen previously. Let's go and find out. I'll do a slightly better search. That's better. I've done a Google search rather than a Bing search. So Trump continues to confuse asylum seekers with people in mental asylums. Fact check: Trump claims patients from insane asylums. Trump confusing seeking asylum with insane, so on and so forth. So, this is just, Trump being Trump, I guess, but he just says things that are completely unjustified, and they need to be called out as soon as he says them, because otherwise they find purchase in the audience who then go along and regurgitate this.
Unhappy with the things he's done, and crime is at an all-time high.
No.
Migrants are pouring into the country that are from prisons and from
not
mental
comparatively.
institutions, as we've discussed.
No.
I can't say I'm thrilled. I don't want to be Joe Biden and give you an answer and then do the exact opposite.
We're going to talk about
so
that.
I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is I certainly cannot be happy with him. You take a look at what's happened. And then when I was shot in the ear, he said, "Oh, maybe it was shrapnel." Where's the shrapnel coming from? Is it coming from heaven? I don't think so. So we need somebody.
What are you talking about?
I have a lot of respect for the FBI, but the FBI's respect has gone way down over the last number of years.
So there was a select hearing or what I'd call a select hearing, a UK version of it. I forget the term in the US, where the FBI did say, it might have been shrapnel that took his ear. No one really knows because, you just don't know whether it was shrapnel from the teleprompter or whatever that was, I think, shot through or whatever, or the bullet. It really doesn't matter. The intention of the shooter is all that matters there. But he took real offence because this was like part of his bravado that it was definitely a bullet. But
Don't you have to fire him in order to make room for Kash Patel if he is in fact confirmed?
Well, I mean, it would sort of seem pretty obvious that if Kash gets in, he's going to be taking somebody's place, right? And somebody is the man that you're talking about.
I asked you last time.
In other words, just say yes.
Down for an interview if you were going to pardon yourself. You said no. But now that President Biden has pardoned his son, Hunter, are you reconsidering? Might you pardon yourself?
I didn't do anything wrong. I was given the option. And the lawyers told me, a very specific lawyer, I don't have to go into who, but very high up in the administration said, "Sir, if you pardon yourself, you're going to look guilty. And you did nothing wrong." Oh, I had that option. I could have saved myself a lot of legal fees, but it turned out that I was right. Look at what's gone on. Everything's being dropped. I still have a fawning.
They've been dropped because you are just about to come into power. They've been dropped not because you're innocent. They've been dropped because Merrick Garland was too freaking slow to sort it out. What we want are those reports as the evidence to come out, to come to light. But they've not been dropped because you are innocent.
Willis, Fani, a total hoax. That's a total hoax. It's all being dropped.
I also asked the president-elect about NBC News' reporting that President Biden is considering preemptive pardons for some of the people who have clashed with Mr. Trump, including Senator-elect Adam Schiff, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and former Congresswoman Liz Cheney. As part of his response, Mr. Trump lashed out at the January 6th committee, accusing it of unfairly targeting him and even of destroying its records, which the committee denies.
And Cheney was behind.
And actually, I'm just looking here because the full interview. So I'm only giving you the Meet the Press program where they cut the interview down. But the full interview would be interesting because, my goodness, there's probably way more on there, way more than we've got an appetite for. That's for sure.
Behind it, and so was Benny Thompson and everybody on that committee. For what they did.
Yeah.
Honestly, they should go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think?
I think everybody anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI?
This is a really dangerous thing to say. So he says, for what Liz Cheney and people on this on the committee for January 6th committee, Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, and he says they should go to jail for what they did, which is voting. So they should go to jail for voting. That's how I would understand that. Just listen.
Go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think?
I think everybody anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI?
Anybody that voted in favor. That's who he wants to go to jail. This isn't about law. This isn't about legality. This is about who voted against Donald Trump. He whinges about lawfare, and you are just seeing there a full-on admission to lawfare. It is, you can't get it clearer than that.
Director and your Attorney General to send them to jail?
No, not at all. I think that they'll have to look at that, but I'm going to focus on drill, baby, drill.
And I asked the president-elect if he plans to follow through on his campaign promise to pardon those who attacked the Capitol on January 6th, including the more than 900 people who pleaded guilty to crimes.
I'm going to look at everything. We're going to look at individual cases, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to be acting very quickly.
Within your first 100 days, first day?
First day.
First day.
Yeah, I'm looking first day.
Issue these pardons.
These people have been there, how long is it, 3 or 4 years?
Okay.
You know, by the way, they've been in there for years.
Because they've broken the law. That's like saying, oh, do you know what? You know, Jack the Ripper, do you know how long he's been in prison? I'm going to pardon him. Do you know how long he's been in prison? Therefore, I'm going to pardon him. He's been in prison because he's a horrible murderer, right? These people have been found in courts of law to have broken the law, hence you pardoning them, you know, of their crimes. But it's not that they didn't commit those crimes. It's you are giving them a presidential pardon. But to complain that they've been in prison for some amount of time is ridiculous. Of course they have. What?
And they're in a filthy, disgusting place that shouldn't even be allowed to be open.
What?
And when we come back, President-elect Trump's...
So, yeah, I mean, I'd love to actually look at this whole interview, because there's undoubtedly going to be an awful lot of stuff that they've cut out, which is where he's just flubbing around and no doubt making really problematic claims.
Administration. Should Ukraine prepare for less aid from the United States after you're sworn into office?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Should they prepare for less aid? Possibly. Probably. So possibly is going to be less than 50%. Probably is above 50%. So see so he starts off trying to be all like, no, they might get less aid. Now he's moved on to, yeah, they're probably going to get less aid. And then I think further in the interview, he says, sure, which is they are going to get less aid.
Sure.
You said you
There you go. Sure. Possibly, probably, sure. In other words, maybe to yes. Yeah, they're going to get less aid. Now, this is horrendous. That answer is horrendous. And I'll tell you why it's horrendous. And I have told you this twice before, so sorry to repeat myself. Trump says he's an amazing negotiator. If you're a great negotiator, you do not lay your cards out on the table before you go and do those negotiations. He's now laid his cards out on the table, and he's told Putin that Ukraine will get less aid, which means he can't use reducing aid as leverage with Putin. He can't go to Putin, I'll tell you what, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and if you don't, we will not reduce aid. He's already said we've reduced aid. So let's say that he's going to reduce aid by 90%. Right, it's almost certainly going to be like 100%. Say that he goes in 90%, and that's what's going to happen. Then he calls negotiations. So the opening gambit to Putin is that Ukraine already have 10% of the US aid. So what other leverage can the US do to get Putin to acquiesce? So you've got two options here. One is that Trump is either a very, 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 very bad deal maker, considering he's written a book, or it was ghostwritten, a book called Art of the Deal. That's quite ironic. So he's either a very bad deal maker, or he wants Russia to succeed. So he's like, actually, I know this is bad deal making. This is what we're going to do. Right, Russia, what do you want out of this? I don't really care that this is bad deal making, because I'm not interested in doing a deal that's beneficial for Ukraine. I'm interested in doing a deal that's beneficial for Russia. There's only two ways of understanding that. And if you are a Trump supporter and a Ukraine supporter, you need to explain that. Explain it to me. I don't think you are able to do so and maintain those two beliefs, that Trump is great and he's going to be great for Ukraine. And, you know, you're being a supporter of Ukraine as you would be as well.
End the war in 24 hours. You've even said you want to try to end it before you're sworn
Well, I'm
into
trying
office.
to.
Before
I'm trying to end it
You're
if I
actively
can.
trying to?
I am.
Have you talked to President Putin?
No, I have not.
You haven't talked to President Putin
No, I have
since
not.
you've been
You
elected?
mean, no, well, I don't want to say that, but I haven't spoken to him recently.
So now he's saying he had spoken to Putin, which would be breaking the Logan Act again. And he's also, as Kristen Welker here said, you said that you're going to solve it in 24 hours, and even before you take the Oval Office, so before January 20th. So, you know, has that happened? No. Were you lying? Is it going to happen before the 20th? Or is it realistically going to happen in one day? Is it, again, deeply irresponsible for you to promise or claim these things to your electorate that are just wildly, wildly improbable? And those big Trump supporters who, yeah, he can say no wrong, can do no wrong. You have to sink that. Well, how do you deal with that? And the idea that he made these claims, but they are massively improbable. Because at the time, you guys weren't saying it was massively improbable. You were saying he was going to do that. Just you watch. Trump is amazing, blah, blah, blah. And then Trump's going, I'm trying to do that. And then the reality is he ain't going to solve it in 24 hours. And that is just obviously BS. And then the question is, well, why do you accept him saying things are obviously BS? And yet you're trying to hang Joe Biden for saying, I'm not going to pardon Hunter Biden, and then pardoning Hunter Biden. So you're saying the thing that annoyed you most is that he lied by saying that he wasn't going to do it. Trump lies all the time. He's lying to you, but you're okay with that because your love for Trump is bigger than, you know, it overrides any kind of issues you have with him lying.
Spoken to President Putin since you've been elected?
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say anything about that because I don't want to do anything that could impede the negotiation.
But you
I want to
have
stop
talked
it.
about
Let me
the
tell you
other.
what.
I don't want to do anything that's going to impede the negotiation, he says, having already said that he is possibly, probably sure going to reduce Ukrainian aid, which is an impediment to the negotiations for Ukraine.
What I have talked about, let me tell you.
Okay.
There are people being killed in that war at levels that nobody's ever seen before. You have to go back to the Second World War, and even that, if you take a look at, and you know what it is? It's the soldiers largely. The cities have been emptied out and demolished.
This annoys me because this is incorrect. If you don't know anything about the Ukraine war and you're watching this, you'd be like, oh my goodness, blown away. This is like mad crazy. It's a terrible war. But most of the cities in Ukraine are not affected in the way that he is claiming. We know better, but if you don't know better, this is just an outright lie. This is a lie.
You know what it is? It's the soldiers largely. The cities have been emptied out and demolished.
The cities. Not some cities, not a few cities, not Mariupol, which is not emptied out and demolished. It was largely affected, but actually they're trying to rebuild it badly, and a lot of people have left, but it's not completely demolished. Bakhmut demolished, Toretsk demolished. Some of these places are Avdiivka horrendously demolished, but these are just a handful. These are like a tiny minority of places that just happen to be on the front line. The way he's talking is like Lviv, Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, Kyiv, Odessa, Mykolaiv, Zaporizhia, Dnipropetrovsk. These are all like rubberized. There's nothing left of them. Everyone's moved out.
The country has been demolished.
No, it hasn't. The country has not been demolished. Stop lying.
If I won that election, which you know how I feel about it, I won't get into it because we don't need to start that argument. I think it's an easy argument. It was really proven even more conclusively by the win that I had on this one. But
you did go to court, sir.
Well, that's your opinion,
Yeah,
but I
okay.
disagree with it.
It's your opinion, and I disagree with it, that Biden won the 2020 election. This guy's an absolute idiot. He is an idiot.
I assumed, kept control. Number one, Israel wouldn't have happened. Number two, Ukraine would have never happened. It would have never happened, Ukraine, Russia. But the number of people.
It was already happening from 2014. You cannot. I can make all sorts of claims. Like, I can likewise say as well, and you will never know. You will never know this. I can just as easily say, God, you know what? If I was allowed to have a shave on the 1st of January 2022, before that war eventually started, if I was allowed to have a shave, my family didn't let me have a shave. If I was allowed to have a shave, that war would never have started. What can you do with that? These counterfactuals, these alternative histories that you just can't prove or disprove. And it's really frustrating.
People that are being killed, soldiers, young, beautiful soldiers. Hundreds of thousands of people are being killed. And you know, it's very interesting. It's level, totally level. The battlefield's totally level. You know what's happening? Yeah. The only thing that stops
it's totally level. What's he talking about?
A bullet, you know what it is a body, a human body. And the people that are being killed,
what?
Hundreds of thousands on both sides. Russia's lost probably 500,000.
Russia's lost probably 500,000, right? What Phillips O'Brien just wrote a Substack on this, wrote a piece on Substack on this, talking about his minimization of the Russian casualties. He then wrote a Truth Social after this that it pushed it up to 600,000, probably because he had some advice from other people, because he doesn't write his own stuff. But the reality is that the Western intelligence services think it's 700,000 plus. So he's minimized it. His initial minimization is taking 200 to 250,000 off the Russian losses. And he's trying to make it like both sides are equally getting hurt by this in a way that does disservice to Ukraine. Everything he says is always to the benefit of Russia, it appears. And this is actually another little window into that. Another example of that.
Lost higher than they say, probably 400,000. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of bodies laying all over fields. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen, and it should have never been allowed to happen. Biden should have been able to stop it.
Sir, will the United States...
Biden should have been able to stop it. Biden should have been able to stop Russia amassing its tanks on the border and invading. He doesn't see. The problem is he doesn't understand the history of the region. He doesn't understand Ukraine. Doesn't understand Russia, and he doesn't understand the actual war itself. So it didn't start as a war. Russia were doing a special military operation where they were going to depose a government. It was a 3-day special military operation that accidentally became a war. The fact that he thinks it's a war that could have been avoided by Biden, the war would have been avoided if Putin had actually understood that the Ukrainians were going to put up a defense. But he doesn't look to pour blame and culpability on Putin. He exonerates Putin and looks to Biden and looks to Zelensky for faults. This is insanely disingenuous. Insanely.
States stay in NATO while you're in office?
In where?
NATO. Do you commit that the United States will remain a member of NATO while you're in office?
Again, they have to pay their bills. If they pay their bills, absolutely.
But not if they don't pay their bills.
But NATO's taking advantage.
Kristen Welker, this is bad from you. You have just justified his incredibly ignorant understanding of NATO. NATO does not have bills. It has very minor bills that all the different nations have to chip in towards, like for the NATO headquarters and but NATO doesn't have bills in a way that is being expressed here. He is saying that the US pays more than anyone else to this bill for NATO. NATO is a requirement that you spend on your own defense forces. So as a percentage of GDP, as arranged or agreed in 2014 under Obama, nations should pay 2% of their GDP on their defense forces as the defense budget, defense expenditure. So that is an agreement to spend on your own defense forces, so that at a time when NATO Article 5 is triggered, for example, everyone has enough of a decent defense force such that they can kind of equally, there's a kind of parity there, and everyone can bring their forces to bear to support whoever has been attacked. And thus, Article 5 is invoked and everyone is on a level playing field. But you're not paying for NATO, you're paying for future preparedness. This is not like we've all bought a pizza and we're all chipping into the pizza, and actually I'm paying for half of this pizza, but I'm only getting one slice. What's going on there? You guys need to pay more for this thing. NATO is not a thing. You're spending money on your defense. That he keeps perpetuating this myth or this ignorant misunderstanding is bad enough. That Kristen Welker here repeats that back to him is not good enough. It's not good enough. And he's I'm sorry, he's an idiot.
They have to pay their bills. If they pay their bills, absolutely.
But not if they don't pay their bills.
But NATO's taken advantage of us because look, two things. Number one, they take advantage of us on trade, meaning the European nations, okay, like terrible. They don't take our cars, they don't take our...
They are taking advantage of us. Would he say that if there was a trade deficit, if he was exporting more widgets to another country than he was importing? Would he say we are taking advantage of this other country? Why should Europe buy more American cars when American cars are not as good as European cars? Why should that happen? Like, what's he talking about? It's a free market, you tool. Like, do you believe in a free market at all? Or is your position that everyone should do things that benefit the US? And if they're not doing things to benefit the US, then they suck as an entity. So Europe should get up in the morning, every day, Europe gets up and goes, right, we need to buy more American stuff, don't we? Because otherwise we're taking advantage of America. We need to buy more cars from America. You know, those crappy little Chevrolets that aren't as good as a BMW. Yeah, we need to buy more of them. That's what we need to do. Or whatever. You get my point. And I'm not dissing the American car market that much.
NATO's taken advantage of us because look, two things. Number one, they take advantage of us on trade, meaning the European nations, okay, like terrible. They don't take our cars, they don't take our food products, they don't take anything.
Do you know why we don't take your food products, you prats? We don't take your food products because it depends what food product. I mean, that's a massive thing. So fresh food, we're not going to take that because it has come across the Atlantic. Frozen chicken, we're not going to take that because it fails on basic food health and safety, food hygiene. Chlorinated chicken is illegal in Europe because what you do is you treat, what Americans do, in my understanding, is they have such poor approach to the hygiene with the chickens and the processing of the chicken that they just solve that all by covering it in chlorine afterwards to kill all the bad stuff. And then they sell that on and people eat that and they're happy with that. In Europe, we go, that sucks. We need much better health and safety right throughout the whole process. So we don't have the need at the end to just cover it in chlorine. And then you're eating chlorinated chicken, you're ingesting chlorine. So that kind of thing, that's my understanding. So the idea that we are taking advantage of America because we don't buy enough of their food produce, rather than properly understanding the situation, is because your produce sucks when compared to the levels of regulation that we expect on our own producers and manufacturers in Europe.
It's a disgrace. And
no, it's not.
On top of that, we defend them. So it's a double whammy.
So, sorry, you defend Europe and we do it on top of them not buying enough of our chicken. Can you believe that? This guy is smashing together so many things so ignorantly that I cannot believe he's president to be of the US. I cannot believe someone as stupid as this is in that position. He is an absolute ignoramus. I'm sorry, he's an ignoramus.
So let me just tell you.
Please
I
don't.
was able to get hundreds of billions of dollars put into NATO just by a tough attitude. I said to the countries, I'm not going to protect you unless you pay. And they started paying. And that...
Somewhat correct, but not really. What happened is back in 2018, was it? He had the whole NATO meeting, and he came out and spoke in public, and it was all a bit controversial because he wasn't supposed to do that. Anyway, he was speaking about, well, initially he was saying that the same old thing, that NATO member states are not paying enough. They're not paying the bills. And so you had a bit of a panic in the meeting. I read to you an article that actually historically went through those meetings, and we discussed exactly what happened. And some nations did a few things in a minor way that placated him. A little bit more spending here, a little bit of a movement of budgets and whatnot. And it placated him somewhat. But what he's now doing is looking at the expenditure in 2024 and saying, I did that back in 2018. No, what happened to really shift up the expenditure on defense as a percentage of GDP from all the NATO members is Russia invaded Ukraine. That's what shifted the expenditure, not what Trump did. What Trump did was, and I'm not saying what he did was bad or wrong, you know, that European nations did need to pay more or as a percentage of their defense. He had that right. That he was the one responsible for the large majority of that extra funding. That's the bit that's wrong, right? And because it's all about him, and of course he's responsible for everything good that happens in the world, right? Again, massively disingenuous.
That amounted to more than $600 billion. That's a big thing. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be fighting. They wouldn't have any money to fight. If they're paying their bills, and if I think they're doing if they're treating us fairly, the answer is absolutely. I'd stay with NATO.
But if not, you would consider the possibility of
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
The president-elect is tasked.
So she's just not interested in pushing back, but I guess she just wants maybe it's him to hoist by his own petard there. So I just want to give you the chance of saying everything, and then we can critique that later on, rather than it being too combative. So I do understand why she didn't push back, but it is deeply frustrating that there was no pushback at all, because it then reinforces his claims, because he thinks, right, I made this claim, she's not pushed back, therefore that claim is bona fide.
Defense spending. You've tapped Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, to head up this Department of Government Efficiency.
Correct.
Which proposes cuts to the federal government. I think a lot of people hear that and they get concerned about Medicare and Social Security and
Not
Medicaid
going to have anything to do.
and defense spending.
We're talking
you
about
won't touch
theft,
Medicare, Social Security.
Abuse, fraud.
Okay.
No, I said to people, we're not touching Social Security, other than we make it more efficient, but the people are going to get what they're getting.
Okay, so
that's interesting, because he's saying that they won't touch Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and yet all of his proxies out there at the moment are saying that in press conferences and whatnot. So I would be very wary here. I'm not saying he's lying, because we can't tell yet, but let's see whether this ends up being a lie. Let's hope it's not. Let's hope that he actually does have a good judge on what are popular provisions, like, for example, Medicare, Medicaid, and the ACA in general, the Affordable Care Act. Yeah.
Entitlements
And
off the table.
we're not raising ages or any of that stuff.
Okay,
No,
off the table.
I won't do it.
And finally, I asked the president-elect about this extraordinary moment in time. He is taking office against the backdrop of a country that is so sharply divided, and when he has yet to concede the 2020 election, which he lost. Sir, I don't have to tell you this because you've talked about it. It comes at a time when the country is deeply divided. And now you're going to be leading this country for the next 4 years. For the sake of unifying this country, will you concede the 2020 election and turn the page on that chapter?
No. No, why would I do that? But let me just tell you, when
won't
you
ever
say the
concede.
country is deeply divided, I'm not the president. Joe Biden's the president.
But you're going to be the president.
No, I'm not the president. So when you say it's deeply divided, I agree. But Biden's the president, I'm not.
It doesn't matter who's the president. It's like, I've just run for president against Biden. I've beaten him in the election. The nation is deeply divided, but he's the president, therefore it's his fault. Yeah, okay, what about the economy? The economy is doing absolutely amazingly. So you're going to say that's all down to Biden, and well done, Biden, for creating a really brilliant economy there? No, you're not going to do that, are you? You wouldn't do that. That is, of course, double standards. So all the bad things, the division in the country, I'm going to lay at the feet of Joe Biden, and all the good things I'm not going to talk about. And then I'm going to invent bad things and lay them at the feet of Biden as well, like murderous illegal immigrants pouring across the border from mental asylums, and crime rates being at record highs. Like, that's not true, but I'm going to lay that at the feet of Biden.
And he has been a divider. And you know where
No,
he
he hasn't.
divided it more than anything else in a
Do you know what happened with the campaign against you? Is they brought in the most the broadest church of people. You had Liz Cheney across to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You had a diversity of people that were talking about unifying the country explicitly as part of their campaign. That's what they were campaigning on. And they didn't win, and they lost to a campaign of division and, I would argue, hate. Now, and fear, particularly fear. To claim that Biden was the divisive one is just demonstrably not true. And again, lie.
I'm not. And he has been a divider. And you know where he divided it more than anything else, and it probably backfired on him, I think definitely, is weaponization. When he weaponized the Justice Department and he went after his political opponent, me, he went after his political...
So, first of all, most of those weren't done by Biden. You've got New York, you've got all sorts of different cases. Plus also, he went after his son and found him guilty. Quicker than he went after you. So, what are you talking about?
opponent violently because he knew he couldn't beat him. And I think it really was a bad thing. And it really divided our country.
Sir, Democrats have control of the White House now. They didn't in 2020. If they're going around stealing elections, why
When you
didn't
say
they do it
Democrats
this
have
time?
control now?
Of the White House.
Yeah.
So why didn't they steal this election? Since they have more power now.
Because I think it was too big to rig.
No, it wasn't. This is where you push back. You say, okay, what was it? In over 100 years, this is one of the smallest electoral wins. A margin of what, 1.6%. I think there was only 3 other presidents who had smaller victories. You've got Trump won less than 50% of the vote. So there's not even a plurality, not even a majority of Americans voted for Trump. It was a very wide but shallow win. So the fact that he's saying, well, they didn't cheat this time because it was too big to rig. It wasn't too big. It really wasn't.
So you won't...
It's too big to rig.
To the people who say
Not true.
that you're now directing your Justice Department to investigate 2020,
No,
and they want to move
I have
on.
very capable.
Is
I
that
think
a
Pam
good
is going to
use
be
of
great.
precious resources?
By the way,
Is that what you
just so
want them
know,
to do?
Just so you know, I have the right to do that, but I'm not interested in that.
Oh, you're not. You're not going to do that.
I'm not interested. I have
Okay.
the absolute right. I'm the chief law enforcement officer. You do know that. I'm the president. But I'm not interested in that. You know what I'm interested in? Drilling and getting prices down and stopping people from pouring into our border that come from prisons and mental institutions.
One of the things that made this campaign unprecedented and extraordinary were the horrific attempts against your life. 2 assassination attempts. Do you feel safe going into the White House
I do.
for the next 4 years? Why?
I have confidence in Secret Service. I know the people. I got to know a lot of them, and I have confidence. It was a bad moment. Something shouldn't have happened, but I have a lot of confidence, and they've really stepped it up. They were restricted from giving look, I'd do a rally, and you were at many of them, and I'd have 50,000 people. Joe would have a rally, and he'd have 30 people. And he had more secret.
He's not telling the truth there. I mean, he lied prodigiously about his own rally numbers and about the rally numbers of, well, actually, really, he should be talking about Kamala Harris there because Joe Biden wasn't running.
Secret Service than me. My Secret Service was always asking for more manpower / women power. They were asking.
So again, yeah, he was asking for more, but Trump had more Secret Service provision than any other person in a similar situation as him in history, as far as I understand it. So again, empirically incorrect.
Asking for more and more and more, and they couldn't get it. I'm
Because
not
you weren't
blaming
entitled
them, really,
to it.
because they were always fighting for more people, and they wouldn't get. Now, boy, do we have it.
I want to ask you, sir, one final question. What do you want to say to Americans who didn't support you in this campaign?
I'm going to treat you every bit as well as I have treated the greatest MAGA supporters. There's never been anything like MAGA in the history of this country. These people are so dedicated to making America great again. It's very simple. And I'm going to treat them just the same as I treat MAGA. We're going to treat everybody good. We want success for our country. We want safety for our country. You know, our country's under threat, as you know. We have a tremendous threat militarily because of the power of weapons and weaponry. It's a tremendous threat. Nobody talks about it, but it's a tremendous threat. I want to treat everybody the same. I want to treat them well. And at the end of this 4 years, and I have a big head start because I was there for 4 years fairly recently. A lot of bad things were done during the 4 years that I wasn't there, and mostly in what they've done in terms of our reputation overseas. Our reputation is so bad, so shot. I got to bring it back, and I also have to bring back civilization to our country. Our country is a crime
Bring
pot.
back civilization.
We have to get rid of crime. We have so many things to do. We have to.
It's a crime pot. What are you talking about? Interesting. This is House Oversight Committee has called for has further called the ex-president's term world's greatest get-rich-quick scheme. Trump overcharged the Secret Service by 300% for accommodation at his hotels. So when the Secret Service was put up in his hotels when he was president, the emoluments clause was absolutely massacred when he was president in 2016 to 2020, 2021. He did things that were wholly wrong. And he would have meetings at his hotels. He made money out of being president, and would overcharge even the Secret Service over 3 times what we would charge other guests.
To do the prices, we have to do all of that, but we have to get the criminals out of our country. We have to bring down crime. People have to be able to walk across the street and buy a loaf of bread without being shot, and that's going to happen.
What are you talking about? People can walk across the street without getting shot to buy a loaf of bread. And you know what? One thing that might have an effect on that would be gun control. What's your position on that, matey?
But what I say to them is, I love you, and we're going to all work together, and we're going to bring it together. And you know what's going to bring it together? Success. I saw that.
You wouldn't know what love was if it hit you in the face with a wet fish.
Just prior to COVID coming in, I had polls that were the highest anyone. McLaughlin and Fabrizio said, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, if they came back from the dead and they ran as president and vice president, couldn't beat you, sir. We were doing so well. And I was getting along with the left. Let's call it the left. Would be nice. Okay, we're just going to call it. But I was getting along with people that you would consider liberal or progressive, as they like to say, at levels that I never thought was possible. And you know what it was? Success. Success was bringing the country together, and that's what I want to do.
Empirically incorrect. His job approval rating at the end was a record low. Well, it was 34%, and the record low average of 41%. He literally was a very deeply unpopular president. There you go. And voted, consistently voted at the bottom of presidents that have ever existed. So yeah, I just talks nonsense. I've lost all time for that man. I had no time for him. I've lost 0. I have negative time for him now. So that's probably enough from me. Really appreciate your sense of, I don't know, wanting to torture yourself by listening to him bang on with scant regard for facticity and truth. Just before you go, though, there are a couple of other things that came up in those parts of the interview that were cut out by NBC for their main program, but they have it released the extended interview, the whole thing. Just there's 2 points I want to pick up on. And the first one is this. So Donald Trump lies and says he released medical records 4 times while in office. He did not. So this is his claim.
So you plan to release. When you think about your time in office, you are making history for a range of reasons, including the fact you will be the oldest person to be sworn into office. Do you commit to releasing your medical records?
Sure, I do it all the time. I think I've released 4 of them.
Not just a letter, though, your full medical report.
Yeah, I would, and I think anybody should, but I mean, according to all the reports, I don't want to, where's wood? Is there some wood where I can knock on wood? But
she makes a really good point there, because she said, no, a report, not letters. He said, I think I've done it 4 times. He's done it 0 times. And then he kind of changes the subject. I knock on wood, I'm still all right. But actually, he's not released a single record. So he's released 3 basically letters from doctors that amount to diddly squat. But he hasn't actually released any records at all. And those 3 letters, 2015, 2020, and 2023, he needs to release a full report, medical report. Like he needs to release his taxes that he hasn't done. But I don't know, his supporters seem to be fine with that. Mehdi Hassan picks up another claim as well that must have happened in the interview that was cut out. So I won youth by 30%, he said, talking about the electoral victory. All Republicans lose youth. I don't know why. Maybe it's changing. And last time we were down 30% with youth. This time we're up 35% with youth. So he starts by saying I won youth by 30%. Then he said 35%, going from negative 30 to positive 35. So that's a swing of 65%. Trump on Meet the Press today just couldn't stop lying as usual. He lost young voters by double digits. So although there was some movement in the youth, what he says, how he understands it, it could be that he just is, again, ignorant of how the stats work, or he's just outright lying. Either way, it's not good, and we can't let this guy continue to make these sorts of claims time and time again. Please like, subscribe, and share. If you could subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, press the button up there. That'd be really great if you could. Take care, and speak to you soon.